As we all know, sport in Jersey has always been vibrant. It's been exciting and highly valued by Islanders. But over the last year, the COVID-19 pandemic has raised our physical and emotional health to the very top of the agenda. And the future of sport in the island is firmly at the centre of this. During lockdown and restrictions, many Islanders have taken advantage of new opportunities to get active, through sea swimming, cycling, walking, for instance, but many have also missed using their gyms, swimming pools and other facilities, and now value them even more highly than before. Against this backdrop, it is the perfect opportunity to launch the Inspiring Active Places strategy, which aims to deliver a network of facilities that work effectively for users and form an increasing integral part of local life. Our sports centres of the future will be community hubs, offering a range of services such as nurseries, health facilities and social spaces that are key to supporting the well-being of our community. This project has its origins in 2014, when the then Head of Sport and the Assistant Minister for Sport published a report entitled Fit for the Future. This was a 5-year strategy for sport and physical activity in Jersey. The underpinning rationale was to improve the quality of life for Jersey residents, to get the inactive active, and to enable residents to be physically active for as long as possible so that they remain fit and healthy. An immense amount of work has taken place since then with the help of sports specialists, Jersey sports clubs and associations. The original rationale was reinforced in 2018 when the government made it a key priority to improve Islanders' well-being and mental and physical health. The Inspiring and Active Jersey strategy was launched last September to achieve this ambition, and today's launch will make it a reality. Inspiring Active Places is a coherent 10-year plan that will ensure Islanders have a range of high-quality, efficiently run centres in which to be physically active. The original timings were affected by COVID-19, but I'm pleased that the plans started in 2019 are now in place. And as the Assistant Minister for Sport, I'm very happy to present our initial plans to take the island's network of sport and wellbeing facilities forward. It is vitally important to obtain the views of all Islanders so that we're able to understand and meet their expectations, so we are also launching a 6-week public consultation to ensure Islanders have the opportunity to lead into this process as it develops. In line with the new island plan and the constables of each parish, we can plan the future to provide facilities for young and old alike. We want to help Islanders enjoy sport more, achieve more and benefit more. Some may say this is an ambitious plan. However, the groundwork is now in place, and as I've been saying for many years as Chairman of the Jersey Sports Council, if we as sports people can work together, we can show how determined we are in bringing the island's network of sport and wellbeing facilities into the 21st century. That is my view, and that is where we're heading towards. So I would very much like to hand over to my colleague Andrew Skate, who will continue the conversation with regards to Inspiring Active Places. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you, Hugh, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'm going to run through a few slides now, just to give you a bit of strategic context and as to where we've come from and where we are going and what the aims of this project are. And then I'm going to hand over to Katrina, who's going to go through some of the project detail as to what we can expect. So a few bullet points here on this slide, but we've started this work. We run a network of public sport facilities. We as a department and as government are in charge of a number of leisure centres, and they've all have a certain age to them. We need to make sure that we are continuing to invest in our built facilities and our buildings and our facilities, and as a result we are going to need to make investments in our sports centres and leisure centres as we move forward over this next 10-year period. So it's critical for us to make sure that the investment that we have to do makes sense for us and makes sense for the sporting needs of the island moving forward. The other critical thing that this project does is look at the geographic placement of our sports centres. We are very central and west focused in our public sport provision, and we've identified, obviously, and all islanders know there is a lack of facilities serving the east of the island. So this proposal also looks at how we can rectify that and provide leisure facilities for islanders in the east. I think it's also important to say that as we move forward, we are talking about sports, we are talking about buildings, but we're also talking about places where we can look at a holistic approach to well-being, running other public services potentially that are associated with sport and activity from these centres, so that actually they can be used as a hub for the community for a variety of activities. As I said, it's a 10-year plan, so we are launching it within this government. We are going into the next government. We will be going into the government after that. This is a multi-government plan. It is a multi-states assembly plan. And as a result, it will cover a number of our funding government plan cycles as well. But it's important to start this work now because it is important to start planning ahead. Buildings and investing in buildings take some time, especially when we're talking about replacing and improving assets. In doing that, we also need to understand really where we are with sport and how our facilities can help sport moving forward. Certainly in terms of our competitive sport, we need facilities where people can flourish within and then develop and represent the island, for instance, going forward. So the vision for the island, as we've already stated in other strategies, but we want to be one of the most physically active populations in the world. It's got to be healthy, it's got to be productive, we want to be fairer. Getting people involved in all manner of forms of activity, whether it be high intensity or low intensity, and looking at their physical and mental well-being has a big impact on their lives and it is a big determinant in their educational outcomes, in their mental health, in their physical health, and we will see those benefits in other bits of government, especially in some of our reactive services where we pick up cost in health, for instance, and in some of our mental health services. So it is a holistic strategy. We have to start now with these facilities, and actually we want to make sure that all islanders feel plugged in. As I said, this investment is multi-year investment. Number of our sports facilities now and our leisure centres are getting a little bit long in the tooth. They were built at a certain time in the island's life, and actually we do need to invest in them. We know we're going to need to do that anyway because that's what happens to buildings. I think the other important thing here, it does enable us to move forward with the Fort Regent project as well. There is a link to this project with the much bigger debate about what we do with the fort. The Fort project has had a number of lives and iterations over the years. One of the main issues it's always had is that we've had sport facilities and a sports centre being run from Fort Regent. This active places strategy seeks to resolve that and gives a home to sport in a purpose-built sports arena rather than in Fort Regent. The benefit for Fort Regent project is that we can then go in as a government and do some of the much needed investment in the building and the various things that the building needs, whether it be electrical, whether it be water, whether it be mechanical, whether it be roof. There's quite a lot. It's a Georgian fort and it does need investment. So this project unlocks that line of work for us as well. The other important thing is running sport facilities in ageing buildings such as Fort Regent is costly. So we want to move our facilities and our services into buildings which are more cost effective. That in turn makes the service more cost effective. And as I said, the linking physical activity of all kinds into our wider well-being and mental health is really important for us now and moving into the future. We have, as part of this project, retained Katrina McAllister from Jersey Sport. She's acting and she's working for government in this guise as our project director for this. Katrina brings a wide range of experience of delivering sports services, but also building sports facilities. So we thought that was a perfect fit to ask Katrina to come out of her Jersey Sport role, but work for us directly in this project to move it forward. So I will now hand over to Katrina, and you'll hear from me a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh and Andrew. And also I'd like to pay tribute to the government at this stage for recognising that putting Jersey sport and sport at the heart of the design of these buildings as we move forward is going to be key to making sure that the buildings that we develop and design over the coming years meet the needs of the sporting community. So I'm delighted to be able to support the government as project director and turning what you see today into reality, albeit over a sort of 10-year period. So starting first of all with some excitement round about Larocquia Sport and Wellbeing Hub. We do know, as Andrew has alluded to, that there is a recognised dearth of facilities, not just sporting, but for community facilities in the east of the island. This project presents us with a unique and fantastic opportunity to start to redress that balance. What we're proposing at the site of Larocquia would be a mixed-use sport and wellbeing hub where we create an 8-court badminton hall, which is essentially 2 competitive netball courts with seating. That allows a wide range of court sports to happen in that facility. We'd also like to create a range of 3G pitches around the island, and placing one of these at a school site is obviously hugely exciting. We also have a phenomenal gymnastics clubs and set up on the island, but all working out of non-purpose-built facilities. So it's long overdue that we create some hubs for gymnastics across the island. Underpinning all good sport sites is a health and fitness offering, which allows these facilities to be more sustainable in nature. And it's really important that as well as facilities that support the growth of sport in the island, we also have really modern, fit-for-purpose public fitness and gym facilities. And that is important so that government can make sure that sport and leisure is affordable for all islanders and not just those that can afford the good private sector that exists here on island. We also want to develop multi-purpose studios, dojos as they're known, for martial arts. The martial arts that are available on the island is quite staggering, and we want to be able to support the growth of these really important disciplines. There is a need to replace squash courts because they will be lost out of Fort Regent, so is there a plan to use that there? And also to provide auxiliary facilities such as cafe, changing room, creche, to mean that these really do become a community hub, places where people can meet and share ideas. What we also have here is a once in a generational opportunity to make sure that as we develop what's needed for sport, we don't just take an insular view on what's required for sport, but we look forward at what the opportunity is to create social assets, one that will work for all members of our community, and make sure that these buildings are somewhere that every islander can enjoy, whether you're sporty, whether you like to keep active, or whether you're maybe more into some of the holistic well-being activities that will be happening. And the cross-fertilisation that gives as people walk in and see sport taking place, see physical activity taking place and think, do you know what, I can actually have a go at that. The government's policy is to look more at services closer to home, and what better way to do that than to develop sports facilities that have a health and community hub as part of them, putting sport and wellbeing at the very centre of our local population. So just a little bit of a diagram here, and there is a website going to be launched at midnight today where you'll be able to go on, hit these little plus signs. The pictures are only for illustration purposes, but will give you an idea of the ambition we have to create spaces that will rival any local leisure facility, across the globe, and make sure that our islanders have access to places that inspire them, hence the very name of what we're presenting today. The next exciting development would be a replacement of Lakennevy Sports Centre. It's a wonderful facility, but it is, like the rest of us, getting on a bit. So we do need to look at how we create a new facility up there, but at the same time are able to do that in a way that the existing facility can continue to serve islanders while we design and build the new one. I'm not going to go into all the facilities, it would take too long, but very like Larocquia, this facility will be this facility will have 8-lane swimming pool with seating, which would be the gala pool for the island, so where we would have our competitions, but also provide valuable swimming. I should just circle back slightly to say we are considering strongly to have a pool in the Larocquia site as well, and that's something that we're actively pursuing and will be one of our first pieces of design development work once we've procured an external team. The other benefit of Larocquia that I should have mentioned is it will be placed in very close proximity to the school, and what a wonderful asset for a school to have in its doorstep. What we're trying to do here is create facilities that work hard for this public purse investment, that return really good returns by working from early morning, 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night, serving our school community and islanders as well. So in terms of Kennevy, really the main pool site, lots of teaching pool space. We know that people struggle to get their children into swimming lessons. We need to address that and make sure that we've got lots of public swimming lessons available. Again, the fitness suites that we talked about at Larocque for the same reason, making sure that we've got good fitness provision for individuals who want to take part. More space out west for martial arts, another 8-court sports hall, which will give us excellent coverage across the court sports, and again, another 3G pitch. And we all know the difference a 3G pitch made at Springfield in terms of increasing the possible participation numbers across sports like football and rugby. Again, we'll be mirroring Larocque in terms of having a permanent gymnastics facility there to serve the east of the island, providing squash court provision and the range of auxiliary activities that I've already spoken about. And as we go forward and design each of these, we will be talking to you, the community, we'll be talking to your constables, your deputies, the government, schools in the area, community groups in the area, to establish what are the social issues that we could address by the development of this building. It's not about looking at it with one lens, it's about looking at it at a lens that means that the money that we put into these facilities really goes far. And we've got Kennevy Sports Centre here, and this is the level of design that we're at the moment. And one of the key points I would like to make today is this is a straw man. We've got enough information to excite the government and get things to today's stage. But what we really need is you, the public, to work with us, the sports organisations, the sports associations and the community groups, to work with us to find out what can these boxes do, how do we kit them out to make sure that the more sports than just now can access our sports hall and design them in a way that they can be used for a plethora of activities. And we can only do that by really good, solid design development consultation with you. We then look at a site in St Helier Sport and Wellbeing Hub, and there is potential. I think everyone is aware of the Jersey Development Company's waterfront transformation project, and we have an opportunity to work in partnership with them. They have identified that they would like a leisure facility to be a prominent feature of that development. So what we're not talking about here is 2 town centre facilities. We're talking about coordination with the Jersey Development Company to ensure that the brief that we've taken forward as to what we need in a town centre facility will be delivered potentially by Jersey Development Company. If that, for whatever reason, doesn't come off, then we would work with government to identify a different site where we deliver the facilities that you see in front of you. This would include swimming and a significantly larger health and fitness facility, as this would really be the workhorse of the public facilities down near all the offices where health and fitness provision is key to that market. Including hopefully squash courts, because again the lunchtime market for squash, after work market for squash is something that will be missing as a result of no longer having Fort Regent and needs to be replaced. And looking at more martial arts space in all 3 locations. So a really exciting prospect. If we can have that on the waterfront, I think it would be an excellent facility to serve the whole of St Helier. And there's just a little diagram of how that will be taken forward. And as I say, you can see much more information on the website from that. Then we move on to the Island Stadium and Springfield redevelopment. These are projects that are ambitious in nature. They are ambitions. We would love to see an Island Stadium delivered for our team sports in terms of football and rugby. But it is likely to deliver this ambition that we will need to target public-private partnerships to make this ambition a reality. What we would like to do is develop a facility that serves the needs of football and rugby through some kind of hybrid grass-plastic merged pitch, similar to what is in Wembley, St George's Park and Murrayfield. We would look at spectator capacity somewhere around 2,500, but very much through that consultation I mentioned earlier, that could be 3, it could be 3.5, it could be 2. So, very much a snapshot in time in terms of our thinking there, where some of that would be seating and some of that would be standing. It would also look to have better auxiliary facilities to support the commercial requirements of Stadia Sport, where we can have match day hospitality, even do things like concerts and events as part of that facility. And there is an opportunity in an undercroft of a stadium. It's a bit dark and dingy, but it works brilliantly for sports like snookers, billiards and darts. So potentially working with Jersey Mechanics to look to rehome them there as well. And we would also look to have a 3G synthetic training pitch as well as the stadium pitch to make sure that there was lots of community use linked to the Island Stadium. Springfield redevelopment only comes about where an Island Stadium is secured. So Springfield will remain the home of football until such times as football believe that there is a suitable solution in play through an Island Stadium. If we can secure an Island Stadium, then, and that's just a little diagram of how it might look. Most of you have seen these type of small stadia. In terms of Springfield, what could we do with that? Well, we know Springfield sits in a highly densely populated area with very little green space. So there's a huge opportunity to create this more of a community wellbeing facility, still with elements of sport, of course. Creating an indoor children's soft play area, a better outdoor children's play area, community health and wellbeing facilities, some five-a-side pitches, improved car parking around the site, and really the key gain would be being able to have a bigger park area for Springfield to serve that community. But as I say, that we have to get on with delivering an Island Stadium and trying to get some private partnership into that to allow us to move on any plans we would have for Springfield. And that's just how it would look with redeveloped, putting in some community space, taking the stand away. This is all available on the website for you to delve into in detail. So next I would like to touch on what we're calling alternative facilities. And you might ask, what are the alternative to? Well, the answer to that question is they're alternative homes for the sport that currently uses Fort Regent to deliver its sporting activity. One of the issues with driving forward any plans the government may have for the redevelopment of Fort Regent has always been the question, well, what's going to happen to sport? So today we start to answer that question with a meaningful, deliverable plan for sport. This is going to involve the expansion of two current facilities, and we could have approached this from let's build a temporary site that will stay there for 4 years to serve these sports while we build Larocque, build Kennevy, build a town centre. The reality is that would have created quite a significant amount of abortive spend. So how the government have approached this is actually to do permanent improvements to Oakfield and Springfield. That means that none of this money is abortive. In the short term, as long as it takes us to put Larocque up, the sports from Fort Regent can be housed there. And then in time, it is our intention to move sports to where is the best facility for them and use decant netball into the new facility at Oakfield to make sure that we have a solution for netball beyond their time at Lismore. So in terms of Oakfield Sports Centre, what we're going to do there is we're going to convert the existing sports hall into a permanent gymnastics facility, which allows us to house the very successful gymnastics clubs that is up at Fort Regent. On the outdoor netball courts at Oakfield, there's 4 tennis courts, netball courts up there. We are looking to create a 12-court, 3 netball court facility using a frame and fabric structure. That will allow all of the court sports to come from Springfield, the current Oakfield Hall, and Fort Regent into that facility and use that there. The dance studio and fitness is already there and will remain unchanged. And we will add a new 3G pitch, which isn't quite full size because of the pitch up there, but will allow for 5-a-sides, 7-a-sides and junior matches to be played there and allow us to take indoor football out of the sports halls, again creating more space for the court sports that we need to rehome from Fort Regent. As well as doing the job of helping us rehome the court sports for Fort Regent, what Oakfield also delivers is a fantastic school and college facility, the likes of that I am not aware anywhere else in the UK. For a school to have access to a 3-court indoor indoor netball centre is amazing. And the opportunity to enhance the GCSE, A-level and college course is up there. Also means, as well as building really good facilities, what we're actually doing is creating our future staff who will work in these facilities and working very closely with the college for that. So again, a facility that will work hard for its money from 6 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night under a dual use arrangement. Springfield Stadium, we will look to create fitness and studio spaces at Springfield, which will allow us to take the active part of what happens at Springfield, so the gym, the fitness classes, down to Springfield Stadium, and also create martial arts, much needed martial arts studio space at Springfield, so we can move the majority of martial arts there, with some also using studio space at Langford and at Oakfield. This will require us to move the play area across to the other side of the site, and we're looking to create some additional parking to support the more participation on that site, but looking to do that in a way that we don't affect any of the trees currently in situ. So both of these solutions will allow us to decant Fort Regent sport out of Fort Regent. This is just a little layout of the 3 netball courts. We're also adding a classroom in there to allow both the college and the school to deliver lessons on both a theoretical and a practical level right away. What that'll also do is create a wonderful facility for coach development, which we badly need, where you can do both a classroom environment and get out your shorts on and get out there as well. So, an excellent facility all round. And this sketch just shows how we would lay out close to a 10-piece competition gymnastics set up. Gymnastics clubs out there will know what I mean by that. But the likes of what we haven't got in Jersey. And I think it's hugely exciting, not just for the club that's based there, but for us to do various different parkour and other type activities out of there, and for the school and the college to use the gymnastics facility as well when it's available. And then we have Springfield just showing how the existing sports hall will be converted into a gym and 3 studio spaces. And the current gym will be also created into studio spaces to allow us to have the capacity to rehome martial arts. And that's just a shot of the how the site would look at Springfield. This is an interim solution not related to the Island Stadium, I should point out. This is an interim. It will stay there permanently, but it's a short-term solution to allow us to decant Fort Regent. Now I'm going to hand back over to Andy, who's going to take you through some of the next steps.
Thanks, Katrina.
Thank you.
Right, so some really exciting proposals there, some really exciting facilities, which I think, hopefully just demonstrates this is a long-term strategy to take the island forward after we've come out of pandemic and looking at building our activity back again and investing in sport and those facilities. This is a slide which I think demonstrates the point I raised earlier. This is a multi-year project. We are talking about, we're on the left, obviously, of this slide today, 2021, and this potentially takes us all the way through to 2032. So there's a number of government cycles in there, a number of political cycles, a number of government plan cycles that we will move through to fund these facilities and to take them forward. So our first focus is going to be around the alternative facilities, as Katrina's outlined, really because the benefits that gives to sport immediately because of the new facilities, but also because we want to move forward with doing some works within Fort Regent. So we can't do that until we have a home for people to occupy and to operate out of. We then want to move into work within Fort Regent. That is subject to a separate consultation coming soon. But importantly, we want to move forward the designs for La Rocquier, and we want to move forward the designs for Springfield in the longer term. So these things have to be staggered because funding isn't all in one block. We can't do everything at once, and we have to stagger the funding over this timescale. But also we have to stagger the project team and the practicalities of getting things working in a sort of domino fashion. But as you can see, we once we're on with this year, going into next year, this is going to be fairly key activity for us for the next 10 years. So as I said, I've said some of this already, but next steps, certainly we want islanders to get involved with this. It's really important. This is a facility. These are facilities. These are areas that everyone uses in the island in one form or another, whether you're with your children, whether you're on your own, whether you're older adults. A lot of people use our facilities, and we are really wanting to set a positive direction for the island in the next 10 years, a real commitment and confidence that we want to invest in these and to take them to their next course of life. So there is a website that is mentioned there. That's going to be live in due course. And we want people to get involved. As Hugh said at the outset, we've got a 6-week consultation on this. We want to know people's views. We want to know everyone who's involved with sport and activity of any form to let us know what we want, because we want to get this right. This is for islanders. This is for the people who use these facilities. We as government, we own the facilities. We need to provide them, but actually the important thing is the people who use them. So that's the stage we're at. We are really pleased to launch this today to get people's imagination hopefully fired up, and actually to give people a real confidence boost that actually we are looking ahead in a long-term way here for activity and well-being for the island. And so please let us know your views. I'm going to flip into a small video now, which is just sorry, I've missed a slide. How dare I? Funding, the important part. I have already mentioned some of this. Funding is multi-year. These facilities do cost a lot of money, obviously, to rebuild, and we can't do all of that at once. So the government does invest significant amounts of money in its capital programme every year, and this will need to be phased through our capital programme year on year. But also we will be looking, as previously been mentioned, as to how we can blend other funding sources, whether it be through private development down on the waterfront and including the development companies' plans there. That will generate value, and we can look to build community facilities into that, or indeed other private investment into sports facilities such as an island stadium. So it's not just government. Government will play a very big part of this, but we also hope that other partners will come on board to help deliver. And now I will be clicking in. Thank you. And thank you. So that brings an end to our questions. And I'm going to hand back over to Hugh now to hopefully take some questions or points of clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Katrina. I have to say, when I first started this, I didn't realise how exciting it was going to be. And I think it begs more questions than answers, I'm sure. So if I may, the suggestion I would make is that perhaps we go around and each ask a question so that we don't just stay with one media output. So if I could say we start with, say, James, with the first question that you may wish to ask.
Thank you, and good afternoon. I actually just want to ask you, Deputy, about the engagement process with groups at Fort Regent, how that's been going in terms of their relocation process, and how we decide who goes where. Well,
the has been undertaken. Most of the people in the fort have now been spoken to. Katrina would probably like to make a few words as well. I've been encouraged with some of the comments that have been coming out. And I think also that they've been able to make comment about what they feel and where they would like to go. Can I just make one thing absolutely clear? Nobody is going to leave the fort until they've got somewhere to go. Let's make that absolutely clear. There is no hesitation in me saying that, and that every sport will be looked after. So with COVID, and as you probably know, just to confirm, and I'm sure you know, that the COVID situation at the fort stays until the end of September. which has put us back a bit because it was going to be July. And as you also know, we've had to cancel some of the events there. But I can assure you that nobody is going to leave until where they go. Katrina, would you like to add anything further to that?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Deputy Raymond. I think the feedback has been positive from the sports. I think the overwhelming feedback has been, right, this conversation we've had before, but now that there is a concrete plan, we can actually start to understand how we will be rehoused and how we will be looked after and part of that process. And certainly for a number of the sports, it is without question that they will be moving to better facilities than unfortunately the government is currently able to provide at Fort Regent. So there is a degree of holding breath to make sure that we have the funding, that we can deliver these facilities. There's a number of work to be done. As you can imagine, it's a hugely complex timetabling exercise, which our consultant colleagues are working on just now. We will then be circling back to every single sport to talk them through how we've taken on board the comments they've made, how that's been built in, firstly to the design of each of the facilities which have been changed as a result of what the sports have been telling us, and secondly, how we will manage the timetabling to make sure that everyone can be taken care of. So it's an ongoing process, but largely been supported to date.
Thank you. James?
Do I get a second question?
No, sorry. Who's representing? I can't. Sorry, who's representing JEP?
Jason Fox, I think.
It was Jason, yeah. Jason, sorry. I can't see.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry,
right,
Jason.
Hello. My question is just related to funding. In the document we were sent, it says there's a reference to 100 million. I was just wondering what that covers. I'm guessing that doesn't cover the stadium. But I was wondering if you could give me kind of a breakdown on what that 100 million is made up of and how much of that is already kind of in place.
Andrew?
Yeah, so thanks. The numbers are sort of ballpark numbers at the moment. We need to go through some of the detailed designs in terms of exactly what we're going to build and exactly what's going to be in each of these facilities. So that's an indicative number at the moment. I think I would just put a bit of context around that. We are talking about 10 years worth of investment. So whilst it is a big number, undoubtedly it is a big number. When we start pushing that across our 10-year time horizon, it gets less each year. The government invests a significant amount of money into its capital programme every year, so we would expect this to be reflected in there, but we'd also expect it to be reflected in, as I've said previously, other forms of funding, such as the development company coming forward with plans in South West St Helier waterfront, and also potentially private investment around a stadium. So yes, not including the stadium, that number, the stadium would be something on top of that. How much of it is in place already? We have a government plan that looks ahead to 2023, 2024 currently. So we have some funding. We don't have all of the funding, but this programme of works will cross this government and the next government and the one after that, and probably go into the one after that. So we are talking about three additional funding cycles. So at every point in that journey, we will be identifying where the capital programme or other funding sources are coming in.
Thank you. The gentleman from the bailiwick.
Yes, good afternoon. The leisure facilities proposals that you put forward seem to cover most sports on the island. So with this in mind, are there any that could potentially move back to the fort after the refurbishment, or is this the end of an era for the fort? Is this it for the fort and sports? And if so, what is the front runner for what the fort's purpose is going to be following you going in and changing things?
Andrew.
Yeah, I can take that. So what we know already around Fort Regent, it's built as it is a Georgian fort. It's not built as a sports centre, and we have made do with sport. I think it's done a really good job for us over the years. Don't get me wrong. I think it is used by a lot of people, but we think sport is better suited in purpose-built sport facilities, not in a fort. So the fort will have to evolve into other uses. We continue to have a real demand for concerts, for large gatherings, for conferences, for exhibitions. So we need big spaces to hold that. The Ford is ideal for those sort of events. And also a conversation future around the Fort about what other activities we would like to see. So that's another consultation that we will look to be launching probably in a couple of months' time, but we haven't formally set a date on that. But before middle of summer, we want to have a public engagement around Fort Regent and some of our ideas, which hopefully, again, islanders will see are very exciting. They also rely on private sector investment, but I think they are realistic, and I do think we can really take the Fort into its next iteration of life. And but at this stage, we are, I think, clearly saying sport, I think, is better suited outside of the Fort environment in purpose-built sport facilities.
I will just add to that as well that probably for my sins, I sit on both the Fort Regent one as well as the sport one. So what I'm really trying to say about that is that we're all working very close together as to how we move it forward to make sure that everybody knows exactly what's going on. We want a clear picture so that everybody is open, as well as the general public as well. Sorry, because I can't see the names. ITV. Right. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Hello, good afternoon. An ambitious plan over 10 years. As you've already alluded to, this plan is one which will go through an election next year, multiple governments. We've taken 10 years to not build a hospital. What makes you think that multiple governments, multiple island plans will follow through this entire 10-year plan and deliver the facilities which I'm sure everyone will agree look and sound brilliant, but could easily be stopped at any of those stages?
What I might suggest on that question, which is a very valid point, if we start with Katrina and we'll go through the three of us, because I think we have some very hard ideas as to move this forward. So if I could start with you, Katrina.
Yeah, I think there's a few points I'd like to make on that. Firstly, everyone listening to this today and reading what you put out as the media tomorrow will have a view on what's designed there. But what we actually need to do as a community is get right behind this and work on the plans, and we can develop them and we can modify them as we go. But what we need is a unified voice, because in my experience, there's the politicians, if there becomes a movement behind this, there becomes a real desire by islanders to create these facilities on behalf of themselves, then it becomes something that the politicians want to deliver. The second point that I always make to my political friends is the cost of doing nothing. The cost to the health of the islanders, the cost to the mental well-being of the islanders. And we know that going into this pandemic, that those most affected by this terrible time have been those whose health hasn't been so strong to begin with. So what we really need to do is invest in that and make sure that we prioritise the health and well-being and the quality of life of our islanders as an absolute priority for this government and the ones to come. And certainly as long as I'm around, I'll certainly be making that point repeatedly, and to make sure that, you know, I use all my skills and experience across the areas of sport, physical activity and health to persuade government that this is something that they want to absolutely get behind.
Thanks, Katrina. Certainly from my perspective, I will come down from a sort of property facilities perspective. We have facilities already in places, so we will need to invest in these facilities, whether we like it or not, really. Le Canave Sports Centre, for instance, as an example, does really well for us, but it's got a certain life to it. There will come a point in this 10-year period where we need to make some really significant investment to keep it relevant for the next phase of its life. So for that facility, it's we're going to need to do that anyway. With a critical eye, you can look at Springfield Stadium as well and think, okay, it does a really good job for us. It's the home of football. It hosts events. It does a fantastic job for us. But it will come a point in time in this next 10 years, again, where you need to invest in that facility. So I think whatever government has this ball, if I use a sporting analogy, at any point in time over the next decade, it's going to have the same issue that's facing with it. We've got facilities that are really well used, really well loved, and the activities that everyone has either watches or participates in, that's not going to go away. So from a starting point, we're going to be in this game whether we want to be or not, really. The facilities are there. They're really well used. Islanders want to use them. And I think it's our responsibility of government to make sure that they reflect, our needs for the next generation.
I come from just a slightly commercial side, which was taken up by Katrina earlier on. And that is the important factor from my perspective. And I can say this now, that we've had some very interesting emails and phone calls from what I would call commercial people that want. I think that we've got to get away from that the government is always going to put the money up. The government isn't always going to put the money up. From my background in the UK, you have to look at the commercial side of how we can use these people. And I have to say, it's very encouraging. And I will also say that the initial stages, so that we show that we are doing something, as my two colleagues have said, and that is that we're not moving anybody out of the fort until they're moving into somewhere positive. And that is that we just hope and keep our fingers crossed with some of the fiscal bids that have been put in by the sporting organisations and by the states of the government, that will help us to start things rolling. And I think you will physically see building works going on, which answers your question. It won't be just talk, because I shall be pushing and my colleagues will be pushing to make sure that it happens. Thank you. Richard Hall.
Hello there, just putting my unmute button on. It is a very exciting project, and as you say, it's multi-government. It takes us to 2032. I think we've just crossed one of the points that I was interested in, is how, if there is a mechanism or any way of providing a mechanism that you can almost enforce all the next governments to stay behind me. But I take on point your answer just now about fiscal investment, which is interesting. Is the one question that I've got is, we're all really keen on a stadium. Are we hinting that could be the fort itself for the stadium?
Andrew.
Firstly, I could say probably not. It's not big enough to be a stadium in that sense. In terms of what you need in terms of a full-size pitch for both with our professional clubs playing and also our amateur clubs. So a full-size football pitch, a full-size rugby pitch, plus the associated paraphernalia that goes around the pitch. The fort, although it feels big, actually when you get inside the walls, it's actually not that big a space. So I think the future of the fort is a different iteration. It's certainly still going to be focused on activity. It's still got to be, in my view, focused on family activity and an activity that includes as many people as possible. We've also got vast areas of open space around the fort, the walls and the ramparts, which really are underutilised. So again, we want to have a really positive, open discussion around how it becomes a bigger community asset again, because there's a lot of unused space up there. But the Island Stadium itself this project starts the conversation on that. It's invariably a big topic for the island to have. There are some real benefits of doing it, and I think there will be some real benefits to both professional and amateur sport in doing it. But yeah, we want to start that conversation and then look at where we think that is that there is potential. So there's some obvious places around the island where it'd be more obvious to put it than others. It's got to be accessible, but also there's got to be space to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Harry.
Hello, thank you very much. So I did have to nip out midway through, so apologies if I'm kind of repeating any questions that have already been asked. Is there still work to do in terms of getting kind of everyone on board with this, in terms of working together, sharing facilities? I think it was mentioned in the report, for example, kind of swimming clubs may be a bit resistant to kind of merging together. Is there still work to do on that front to get everyone kind of bought into everything you want to do here?
Katrina.
Yeah, thank you, Harry. I think the answer to that is yes. There will continue to be, wide-scale consultation with all sports organisations and clubs as we go through the design development. In this, there isn't really a need to merge clubs. What we need to make sure is, and one of the first things we will have the external team do with us once they're appointed through an open procurement process over the coming months, is to undertake a swimming pool review, so we understand exactly how much pool time, pool space we need need to accommodate the needs of all swimming clubs, but also the growth of swimming. We've seen it through the pandemic, the growth of sea swimming, that moving indoors during the winter, disciplines such as synchronised swimming, diving that need to be considered in terms of the depth of the pools, the size of the pools, 25 versus 50, the location of the pools, and the benefits to schools of having pools close and in close proximity to them. So that's a huge piece of work that we still need to do. But actually, as I repeat the point earlier, one of the biggest points to make today is this is a straw man, and the only way we're going to get it right is through detailed consultation. And in my last project, I went out and I met every single sport in Scotland to understand what their needs might be and how they may need to use the facility. I plan to do that shoe leather work again. And one of the exciting things about having myself and Jersey Sport involved in this is that the needs of sport government have astutely placed at the centre of this design development, and I think that gives us a real chance to get it right for sport.
Thank you. So if we go back round in a circle again, so we go back to James, is that correct? I haven't missed anybody out, have I? No. Right, James.
Thank you, Deputy, and apologies if I'm repeating anything that's already come up, but certainly with regard to Le Cannevet, it'd be interesting to know if Le Cannevet will be affected by, given where it is in the timeline, the other projects that come before it, particularly from a budget standpoint.
Andrew.
No, so we want to make sure that we've got funding. This is a strategy for all parts of our sporting estate. So, we are going to need to invest in Le Cannevet. It's got some life left to it yet, so I think we're fairly clear where it is in the programme, mainly because the assets there have still got some good life to them, and actually the needs for facilities, really the eastern side of the island have got the primary need because they haven't got any facilities, for instance. So no, we need to make sure that we are committing across the entirety of the estate, but Le Cannevet will get its funding because we've already got an asset there which we'll have to invest in and keep relevant. So it's very well used. So it won't suffer. I think we're just being practical about what the relative priorities are versus what the state of the buildings are and where the real needs are. So certainly the east of the island hasn't got anything currently. Hence, that is higher up the list than other areas.
Thank you. It's Jason was next, was it not?
It was, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Be a test of your memory to get this in the right order again, Hugh.
Thank you.
It's back to funding again. Well, in part anyway. With regards to the stadium, I know it'll be kind of, as you said, about being commercial/government combo. Is there a rough estimate as to how much you'll be looking for? And also, I know it'll be down to consultation, but have potential sites been discussed?
We've got a cost. Do you want to?
I can talk. I can talk if you want.
So certainly in terms of what a stadium needs to be, if it is an island stadium, it needs to meet multiple sport requirements. So football and rugby are obviously two big pitch users. So we've got a professional rugby team, for instance, at the moment. We have burgeoning football teams. We have an amateur scene, but we have a new football team in the Island, the Bulls, who are on a good trajectory of advancing. They've been halted a little bit due to COVID. So I think what we're signalling here, if we fast forward 5 to 10 years, the needs of both rugby and football, I think, will be different to where they are now, and football especially is growing, and it's got all the indications that football as both a participatory but also a spectator sport is going to grow. So it's got to have space, so we've got to get it into a place where we think it's sensible. We haven't at this point said it's definitely going to be here, it's definitely going to be there. I think that's part of the consultation that we need to go through. As Hugh's outlined, we've got an island plan process which will identify certain bits of land use. So we also need to use that process. That's due to be published sort of about Easter time. In terms of funding it really depends on what's in it and how big it is. But I think some of the a new sports centre is vaguely around £40 million probably, depending on what we put in it, depending on what the water facilities are in there, if the size of the pool. So a lot of the costs are dependent on the design and what we build. But I think certainly an island stadium is at least 20 million, I would have thought, is of that order. It could be more, depending on the size and what we put into it. But again, as Hugh's outlined previously, we do need to look at all funding options around that. I think government has a good part to play in it to make sure that there's a fairness of use in the facility and that it's managed across the community. So we'd want an island stadium to work for us for public access, other groups, other clubs, associations, as well as our bigger clubs. So so government's got to have a role there somewhere, but it does really depend on what the final detail comes out of the consultation.
Thank you.
It feels like the big gap in all of this, which is an important thing to pin down, is what conversations have been had with the Jersey Development Company about the St Helier site, because in St Helier you have by far the biggest amount of the population who need access to facilities. We know that the private facilities over there, their days are numbered. What conversations have you had, and how confident are you that you can come to some agreement to provide something between yourselves and they, so that St Helier isn't left out of this, where most people and most demand is concentrated?
Well, yeah.
So I have had several conversations with Jersey Development Company, even into detailed conversations with their design team who are taking forward the waterfront. So essentially, it will work really one of two ways. Either the team and myself will do the public consultation around sport. We will take that brief, we will pass it to their design team to deliver. But they will be developing our brief. So that brief will be underpinned by what the sport and the community of St Helier needs, in the same way as every other facility. And that's the conversations we've had to date. If for whatever reason a sports centre does not become part of the waterfront site, we would move to Plan B, which is exactly the same way as we would deliver the other facilities, where that brief would be taken forward by the incumbent team that we've appointed to design and construct the other facilities. There is no question of St Helier being left behind. It's just whether it goes onto the waterfront site as part of that development, or has to be a different site developed for it. So there is a commitment. Everyone knows that a replacement site in St Helier is an absolute priority because of the very reasons you've stated.
Yeah, I was going to say,
So certainly our working with the development company, we mustn't forget it's a government-owned development company, so they are 100% owned by government. We've had some, and we're talking about Southwest St Helier, so we are talking about creating a new community there. We will undoubtedly need community facilities. So yes, there will need to be some commercial space, there will need to be predominantly residential space, but certainly we need a mixture of uses. So I'm very confident with working with the development company that what we've got to talk about is creating a place that works. It's part of town. So actually it's not just a development site to build, sell and move on. It's actually we're creating a community. So I think the facilities we're talking about there, some of which are already there, we've already got leisure facilities in that area. So we do need to look at the holistic planning of that. So I feel very confident that we will get a St Helier solution, certainly in that location, and supplemented with the other facilities we've spoken about.
Just following on from that, from a pleasing point of view, all of us have been in discussion, and I think the one thing that hits home to me all the time is everybody's always saying you've got St Saviour, St Clements and St Helier, which has basically got 50% of the population. So we've got to make sure that, I know we're talking about east and west as well, but we've got to make sure that St Helier fits in. And I have to say that all of us have been talking together and with the Jersey Development Board. And that's where I've been sort of very encouraged going forward, is to see how this works. But I still will put that one word in the brackets, that you have to look at this both commercially as well as governmental-wise as well. Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. I can never find the unmute button. Yes, the mission to increase our physical activity by 10%. What other mechanisms are you going to do to educate us all, if you like, to take this and grasp it and use it?
I'll leave that with you.
It's probably got my name on it. I think developing inspiring places, and that's why it is one of the 3 themes of the Inspiring and Active Jersey strategy underpins that work more than anything. And having a stock of facilities, both indoor and out. So this really is about indoor, but alongside this, we'll be looking at parks, paths, cycle routes, networks. So a holistic approach to getting people active, because indoors isn't for everyone. So I think it's really important that we have these range of facilities to help grow participation. It's important that we've got them to support those who are already engaged in sport, and it's equally important that we have the type and the range of facilities that support those that are least active, those that face the most barriers towards becoming physically active. And that's where having sport and well-being in the same building, so someone may need we're working with an individual just now who needs one-to-one support to even make that visit to the site, let alone actually take part in any physical activity. So being able to have mental health support who can work with people to get them into the mindset to exercise is really critical. Having the facilities operated where you can program them, so we can use the quiet times to target those who otherwise are not physically active is really, really important. So having a range of facilities where we can do some really intensive work is going to be crucial in moving that forward. I have to say 2 of these sites, Oakfield and La Roque, present phenomenal facilities for our schools and our colleges, and that is also key in creating young people who go into adulthood just being different to us. They just exercise. It just becomes part of their psyche. So all of these are important factors in targeting that 10%. The buildings do so much. What I would say is what has to come along then is excellent programming that suits everybody's individuality and how we can get people to be active. So that will come part of the facilities as well. And having government facilities allows us to control the price point, which is a really important point. How do we make facilities inclusive and so that everyone can afford them? So a review of how we do that will also be part of how these facilities are operated once they are developed and opened.
Just following on from that point, which I think is very valid as well, if we have the best facilities, people will want to come and visit us, and the sports will want to bring people over. So it's very important that the facility angle is looked upon, as Katrina's doing, really as a major point of moving forward. Harry.
Thank you. I know there was a lot of disappointment regarding the five-a-side at FB Fields recently, with that not being able to go through. I think the five-a-side is obviously part of the plans for Springfield. Have you spoken to those behind the plans for who wanted to do FB Fields, and are they happy with the new plans you've got in mind for five-a-side pitches in the island?
Andrew.
So I think we need to be clear with this strategy. This is about public facilities and the facilities that we provide as government for the general public, as opposed to private companies wanting to do private facilities on land. So, this isn't a facility. This isn't a strategy for all facilities. This is a strategy for the public facilities that we need to make sure that is available to all. So that are available to all. So certainly do private clubs such as that proposal or other private clubs that we talk to, do they have a role to play? They absolutely do. So I think other conversations need to take place with sort of private sporting clubs as to where they operate from, where they can operate from, and where they fit into the sort of wider offering. But this strategy today is really around our public offering to all.
Excuse me, being totally new to this, where do we stand? Are we happy to go around for more questions, or?
Sorry, I think you missed out.
Sorry, Harry. What did you want? Continue. David, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Sorry, I think you missed that.
Sorry.
That's all right. I was just going to ask, really, the report that you've released today mentions a bit about combining health facilities with the new developments. I was just wondering how that's going to fit into plans for outpatient services once the new hospital has been built. And really, if there's been any consultations with GPs and health professionals so far about incorporating fitness or health facilities into a combined practice?
Yeah.
At this stage, there has been some very high-level conversations. The sort of notion of adding the well-being parts really came out towards the end of the process of us developing this report. So they've sort of been built as square boxes onto the buildings at the moment. So that detailed consultation will start from this point forward once we have our design team in place. I think at a very high level, it's been hugely welcomed that I can't actually think of any other project that will go ahead in the island which will have a geographical spread that lends itself beautifully to the provision of outreach health services. So we will be starting to talk to our health colleagues imminently about what they may need and what that may look like. And I think, the government are just forming that kind of thought process just now, and we will take that up with them as soon as we have our team on board.
Thank you. Well, I think there's been some very, very interesting questions this afternoon. The people concerned with what we're trying to do. I don't think there's any hesitation in any one of us receiving any information or any questions from the media. Can I thank you personally all for turning up, and hope you find that it has been an opening afternoon to see what's going on with sport and where we want to drive it and what we want to do with the facilities of sport. Can I thank you very much for taking an interest, and can I thank you, Andrew and Katrina, for this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.